Alright guys, so today we have some pretty interesting news and information regarding PlayStation that I wanted to take some time to talk about and bring you. I think some of you will certainly find this interesting, and some of you have actually been asking me to talk about it. So here it is. The first thing is actually in regards to Spider-Man PS4, and this news just came out, and I think it's kind of crazy if I'm being honest. I can't say I'm really surprised, but when you think about it, you just can't help but feel kind of impressed. And the news comes from the NPD group, and it comes from Matt Piscatella, and he has actually revealed the list of top 10 best-selling superhero games of all time in the United States, and at number 1 is Marvel's Spider-Man. Now, if you think about that, this is a PS4 exclusive game that has surpassed, and I'm going to read from the list, starting from number 2, Batman Arkham City, Batman Arkham Knight, Lego Batman, Lego Marvel Superheroes, Spider-Man the Movie 2, Injustice Gods Among Us, Batman Arkham Asylum, and Injustice 2. And Marvel's Spider-Man for PS4 is sitting there at the top. And honestly, that is insane. It's even crazier to think that this game is less than a year old, and it managed to beat these games. I have to say, out of all the games listed here, I am extremely impressed at the fact that it was able to outsell Batman Arkham City and Batman Arkham Knight. That's just crazy, especially when you realize it's an exclusive game. So you know what? Congratulations to Insomniac Games. Congratulations to Sony and even Marvel. I can't say it's the biggest surprise in the world simply because Spider-Man is extremely popular, and seeing how well Marvel's been doing with their cinematic universe and how well received it's been, it just makes sense that people are going to be all for a Spider-Man game. And you know what? Here's the thing though. I believe the reason why Spider-Man is number 1, it's because of the quality of the game. There's no doubt about that. I mean, of course, Spider-Man itself sold the game, and as you can see on this list, there were other Spider-Man games. But I think the reason why Spider-Man PS4 stands above the rest and just sits there at number 1 is because of the quality factor. Insomniac did an absolutely phenomenal job with that game, and if there's anybody out there who had any doubt of us getting a sequel to Spider-Man PS4, well, first of all, you're missing all the signs. There's clearly going to be. Not going to get into it, but anybody who's played it knows what I'm talking about. And not only that, but when you look at a list like this and you see just how well it has sold, this isn't the first time we're hearing about it. Yeah, I can guarantee you that right now Insomniac is working hard on a sequel with Sony, and honestly, I am very excited for it, and it's certainly going to end up being a PS5 game, and I think it could end up being potentially the best-selling PS5 game. If there's any game that I think Sony will end up making a PS5-only exclusive, just in case they do decide to release some cross-gen titles, in the beginning of the PS5's life cycle, I think it'll be Spider-Man, because that will sell units like crazy. But moving on from that, we're going to be talking about how Sony apparently plans to attend Gamescom. It says Sony may have skipped one of gaming's biggest shows by sitting out E3 2019, but it will reportedly appear at Gamescom 2019. While it has seemingly confirmed an appearance, it remains a mystery as to what exactly the company has planned for the show in Cologne, Germany. Regardless of the specifics, however, this is good news. So it is good to see that they are going to have a presence here. They don't plan on skipping Gamescom, but at the same time, we have no idea what they plan on showing. We have no idea what type of presence they're going to have. It could end up being something really small where we don't really hear anything. Frankly, I'm not expecting much. I'm going to go into detail in a little bit as to why I'm not expecting much. But that doesn't mean they couldn't end up surprising us with something. But either way, it's good to hear that they are going to have some type of presence. I know some people were wondering if they were going to be attending Gamescom. We know that Microsoft has come out here and let us know that they're going to be at Gamescom with Xbox. And, they're doing their whole thing that they always do every year. It's going to be the biggest and best show ever. And they're trying to get people hyped. And frankly, looking around, it seems like nobody's buying it anymore. So I don't know why they're doing that. Who knows? Maybe it will be a big show for them, but I'm not holding my breath. And the final thing I want to mention here that a lot of you have been actually mentioning within my comments that I actually missed, but it seems like it will be significant, at least for Sony anyway, is apparently how Sony's going to be hosting a lengthy PlayStation conference at ChinaJoy 2019. It says every year a digital exhibition, ChinaJoy, is held in Shanghai, China, As the region's largest digital entertainment expo, it demands a lot of attention. This year, Sony has chosen to get involved as the company will host a 2-hour PlayStation press conference on August 1st. At the moment, we don't know what will be shown at this lengthy press conference. Surely there will be significant news that's especially relevant to the publisher's Chinese market. For instance, updates concerning the PlayStation-supported ChinaHero project may take center stage. According to the initiative's listing on the PlayStation Asia website, the ChinaHero project lends support to Chinese game developers. This project primarily aids startup developers who wish to develop work for both Chinese and the global markets. It says here that PlayStation is apparently teasing 7 games for their ChinaJoy 2-hour press conference. So the thing about this is I am not really that hyped for it, simply because I feel like this is kind of a whole separate thing that Sony's doing. At least that's just the vibe I get from it. It doesn't seem like this is going to be the place where they're going to be showing off The Last of Us Part 2, Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima. It seems like it's really just going to be stuff that's focused mainly for the Chinese market. And we know that, gaming, even though it is a huge market, I think, the biggest market? I'm not really sure about that, but I know it's massive. And there's a reason why all of these publishers want to appeal to this market and, get into this market. It can be very lucrative when done right. But we know that China has very strict, guidelines and whatnot. And I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to it. But there's no denying that a 2-hour press conference is pretty significant. So who knows? Maybe there is going to be something big here that none of us really saw coming. Maybe, I want to say there's maybe a 10%, no, maybe that's too much, a 5% chance that Sony would, for some reason, use that opportunity to show off more of The Last of Us Part 2, but I doubt that. Do not expect that at all. Something I wanted to take just a few more minutes to talk about here is the reasoning why I think that Sony isn't really going to be doing much in terms of what I think most of us are excited to hear about in terms of an update on The Last of Us Part 2 and on Ghost of Tsushima and potentially other projects as well, is because honestly I think they're saving everything for PSX 2019. A lot of people are wondering if Sony is actually going to hold a conference this year, because we know that they didn't hold one last year. So they were quiet last year with no PSX. They didn't attend E3 this year. And so the big question is this: will they be doing a PSX 2019? Will they be doing an E3 2020? And the truth is, I think we are going to get a PSX 2019, and I don't know. I didn't mean to say I don't think. I don't know if Sony plans on returning to E3 in 2020. I say this because I think Sony realizes that they can create pretty massive waves without having to spend all that money to show up at E3. And what they might do is just, really try to build up their own show with the PlayStation experience, put their money into that, and pretty much save every announcement that they would normally have during E3 for that time. But the only problem with that is if you think about when they host the PlayStation experience, it's at the end of the year. So by that point, the holiday season is essentially over, going into January. So that could create some issues if they're trying to build hype up for something going into the holiday season. But then again, they kind of proved with Death Stranding recently in the way they chose to announce it that, again, they don't really need E3 to build hype and to have exciting announcements. They can just kind of drop it at any time. It doesn't necessarily need to be at E3. The final thing I want to say is I think the reason why we are for sure going to be getting a PlayStation Experience 2019 this year is because I think it'll be the final send-off for the PlayStation 4. I think Sony knows that they still have some really big things in the works. Well, obviously they know, but what I mean to say is I think they know that people are still excited for what's to come for the PS4, and because of that, it would just make a lot of sense if they dedicate this PlayStation Experience to really just, a massive blowout with, The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and obviously some other stuff that we currently don't know about. And the big question there is, will we see the PS5? I know that this commentary really just kind of got all over the place, but I feel as though it is relevant because when you think about it, they're going to be going to Gamescom. They're going to be doing a 2-hour press conference, if I could speak, in China. So a lot of people are expecting or maybe hoping that there's going to be big things, and pretty much what I'm trying to say is we want to temper our expectations. I doubt that either of these places is where Sony is going to have their big announcements. There will be some things for sure, things that people can certainly get excited about. These 7 games, for example, I don't know what they are, but it will be interesting to see if any of them end up appealing to me or maybe any of you guys out there. But I honestly feel as though at this point, Sony's being very careful and very strategic about their build-up to, going into 2020 with games like The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. I think there will be a PSX, and I think if we're going to be seeing any huge and major announcements, any bomb drops, it's going to be then, not necessarily at Gamescom, not necessarily at this 2-hour, even though it is a long conference. That's kind of the part that interests me. I don't think we're going to see it there either. And I certainly at this point don't think, and I don't anticipate that we're just going to see a random state of play pop up where they're going to talk about The Last of Us Part 2. I just don't see them doing that. I think they've kind of shown at this point that that's not their plan. Because if they were to do something like that, you would think they would have done it with Death Stranding, and they didn't. So anyway, I know that was a lot of talking, and man, I'm going on and on, but I feel like this stuff is important because, these are questions that a lot of people have, and I don't have the answers. But I feel like logically speaking, it just makes sense for Sony to kind of save everything as they get closer to 2020, because there's no doubt that 2020 is going to be, I think, potentially the biggest year for PlayStation ever. I mean, if you think about it like this, and I'm going to end the video here, they have a PSX 2019. They get people hyped with The Last of Us Part 2, a release date of February 2020. They get people hyped with Ghost of Tsushima. They show a lot more about that game, and they reveal that game's actually going to be out maybe like May or June of 2020. And then on top of that, maybe they share a little bit more about the PlayStation 5, and then they let us know that going into later into 2020, maybe even E3 2020, that's when they're going to show off the PS5 as well as the big exclusive titles they're going to have to launch alongside the PS5 in holiday of 2020. So think about that. In 2020, we could be getting The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima within 6 months of one another, and on top of that, we have the PS5 and all of those exclusive games, launch titles that are going to be going along with it at the end of 2020. How crazy does that sound? That sounds crazy to me. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. It turned out longer than I wanted it to, but I appreciate anybody who stayed till the end. Appreciate anybody who checks out my content at all. Does not go unnoticed. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down below. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.